Okay, everybody, welcome to week 8, and we're looking at chapter 6 in Well Said. So you may have noticed that we've been building our pronunciation from the very basic element, which would be the element of the sound of each letter, and we've progressed to word parts such as whether something is pronounced a certain way, if it's a noun or if it's a verb, or if when they're paired together, like a compound noun, or a compound verb, or a verb plus particle. We're starting to build these blocks, and pronunciation rules impose themselves based on this building of words. Now we're going to look at stress in longer words. And this is really important when you add suffixes or prefixes, but in this case we're going to be looking at suffixes, words that are added or endings that are added to the end of a word and that can change the word to a verb or to a noun or to an adverb or to an adjective. So when we add certain endings, it changes the stress where we put on the word, and that changes the pronunciation. So we're going to take a look at this in more depth, okay? So can you notice a difference in pronunciation or stress where we put more force in the word, where we put more emphasis? That's what stress is. There's a little bit more force that we put on a particular area in the word. So look at achieve, achievement, achievable, achiever. Hopefully you notice that the suffix meant and able and er here doesn't affect some words, okay? So for the example, some words that we add suffixes to, like meant and able and er, do not affect the words meant, able, er, okay? So we just kept our stress on that second syllable, achieve, achievement, achievable, achiever. So these three do not affect how we pronounce the word with a different stress, okay? But let's look at other words and other suffixes like ick, itty, shun. They do affect the words and where we put the stress on those words. So let's look at the word history. You notice that the stress, that which is bolded and in capitals, that will always represent stress in this chapter, okay? Whatever is bolded and capitalized. History, but if we add IC, which is going to add that to be an adjective, historic, so we shift our stress from the first syllable to the second syllable once we add the IC. Notice that we still have the same amount of syllables, history, historic. It didn't change that, but it did change where we shifted our stress. History, historic, okay? Major, first stress is on the first syllable, major. We fall in our voice, I don't know if you notice, major. And then if we're going to add ITY, majority, majority. So hopefully you see majority, okay? How about demonstrate? The stress is on the first syllable, but then we're going to add TION, and notice that we're going to shift it. Demonstration, demonstration, okay? So you can see that that then has shifted our stress from the first syllable to the third when we added TION. Let's look at the other words that you see here. Trainee, referee, guarantee, absentee, historic, specific, democratic, chaotic, okay? Majority, ability, facility, priority. So if you say these words with me, notice where we put our stress. Trainee. He's the new trainee. Oh, I don't like that referee. I guarantee you. We have a lot of absentee ballots this year with COVID-19. Historic, specific, democratic, chaotic. And you notice where the stress falls in those syllables, right before the IC. In trainee, you'll notice that the stress is at the very last when we added EE. Okay? Trainee, referee, guarantee, absentee, historic, specific, democratic, chaotic, and then majority, ability, facility, priority. Okay? Priority. So this is going to tell you that we're going to learn the guidelines for the suffixes that affect stress. And the guidelines that you're about to learn in the rules are going to tell you about how to pronounce these more clearly based on the stress. Because a lot of times we know a person is from a different country if they don't speak natively English. A lot of times, even though they're English and we can understand their words, sometimes the stress is differently, so it gives you an accent, right? And all of us have an accent. So we have especially long words sometimes in technical words that come from Latin and Greek. So how do you say these words? So academic, scientific. So these technical words we can take a look at. So one of the things I want you to look at in this listening activity, and you can turn on CD2 track 20, is listen to the vowel sounds in these words and which ones are clear and strong, and which columns have vowels that are weak and unclear. Okay, so band, husband, man, woman, spa, spaghetti, add, advice, table, vegetable. Okay, I don't know if you heard the shift and the different way that we say the vowel when we have it in multiple syllables. You can hear ba, band, and then husband. We don't say husband, right? Man, you really hear that ah sound. Woman, woman. We don't say woman, right? Okay, spa, spaghetti. So notice how these very clear and strong vowels are being reduced to weak vowels, and we also call that schwa reduction. We actually go from a very clear and strong vowel, and we put it in multiple syllables, or usually after a stressed syllable, we reduce the vowel that comes next in the next syllable to an sound. And it's just easier for us to be able to speak it that way because it's quicker. It's more efficient to go to an sound because it's easiest. It's that vowel is the central mid-lax vowel. That means we're just neutral. Okay? So neutral vowels are easier for us to say when we're doing multiple syllable words and we're speaking in very fluid conversation. We don't want to stop and say husband, woman, spaghetti, right? So that's why we reduce vowels, and every culture does that. Not necessarily to the schwa, but so you can speak more clearly and quickly. Mostly it's for quickness. You reduce a vowel. So it says, in which column were the vowels clear and strong, and which one were they weak and unclear? Unstressed syllables often have the weak schwa vowel sound, as in about and us, okay? So you can listen to me or the audio in track 21, and we're not going to do this here, but your job is to put a line through the unstressed vowel, the one that you hear the sound. So they do the first one for you. You can hear that sound. Method, by a logical. All right, let's take a look at the next one. It's kind of hard to stop each syllable. That's why we reduce these vowels down. Specific, okay? So you should put a line through the E here because we said sp, and thick, but we did the sound, okay? I don't want to do that one because it actually sounds like a bad word, okay? So now we're going to do develop, duh. So you put a line through this E here, and then ve, you hear that S sound, and that's a strong clear vowel, lup, lup. Okay, so you can do these and get the feel that the stressed vowel has the clear, strong vowel sound. And many of the other ones have the reduced, weak vowel, which we call the schwa, which is the sound, that central lax vowel, okay? And then you can check your answers in the dictionary and then see how many of those vowel sounds actually had the schwa sound. Okay, we're going to look at our first rule here. And then we use suffixes to predict the stress in longer words. So look at all of these, and here's something interesting. These are all I words. Everything that has a suffix that begins with an I, these particular ones, will trigger, or that means to set off, a rule that tells us where to put that stress so we know which to make a clear vowel, clear and strong vowel sound, and maybe which other vowels we're going to reduce around it, okay? So let's do a few below. You can look at track 22 in the CD, but location, condition, definition, security, minority, liability, justify, identity, specify, okay, financial, official, initial, chaotic, academic, economic, practical, technical, economical, musician, physician, electrician, religious, ambitious, delicious. Okay, let's come down here, and they put, again, they bolded in this case the suffix, the I suffix that they're adding, and then they capitalized, all caps, the stress. So you notice that selection, scientific, possibility, clarify, potential, historical, politician, suspicious. Okay, most important, stress shifting suffixes are included in Rule 1 with all these I, the IC and the ICAL. They account for 90% of all shifts and more stress. That's important, right? That tells you that if you can just nail down this rule here and practice, 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 90% of the time when you add an I suffix, you're going to get the stress right, which means you're probably going to get most of that pronunciation right, and you're going to have people understand you better, and you're going to move a little bit more to native sounding speech, okay? So that's it. They do put a couple of asterisks here. There are a little bit of a change rule that makes you even a better, I don't want to say a better speaker, it makes your pronunciation better. It gets a little bit more technical here, but I'll go ahead and read the rule to you so you can see. It has to do with these two suffixes down here. The IAN suffix is one syllable when it is preceded. That means when something comes before it that has a C, a T, a G, and an S. So if any one of those letters comes before the IAN, okay, then it is two syllables when preceded. So one syllable when it is preceded by T, C, T, G, and S, as in musician, okay, because we have a C here, so it's going to blend that, shun. It becomes part of the IAN. But it's two syllables when we have a B, D, or R, and other consonants, as in Canadian or librarian. Notice that the I in IAN moves with that consonant. So here we have a D, right? And then when we add IAN, that I attaches itself to that consonant. Librarian, here we have an R, the IAN, the I will move and attach itself to that consonant. And it adds an additional syllable. We don't say Canadian, Canadian, I can't even say it, Canadian, and librarian. See how that just wouldn't work? So it's librarian, okay, and Canadian, and that adds one more syllable, Canadian. All right. Down here to the IOUS suffix is one syllable when we have a C, T, or G, just like up here. Suspicious, notice that that C added to the IOUS, or the G, like religious, so the G added itself to the IOUS, right? But it is two syllables when preceded by R and N. Notice that we had an R here, but here we have an additional N, and other consonants, as in mysterious and previous. So what happens is when we have one of these consonants, it's going to move the I over to that consonant. Move the I over to that consonant and adds a syllable. This takes tons of practice, everybody. I don't expect you to just know these rules like that just because I say the rule. Automatically, you know the rule. Practice, 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 right? So you might want to read this 2 or 3 times again. But notice that in one syllable words, it stays one syllable. Sorry, let me change that. We have one syllable when we have a C, T, G, and S. We're going to make that IAN one syllable by adding that consonant. Still going to be one syllable. But it will be 2 syllables if we add B, D, or R. The word has a B, D, and R right before it. We're going to move the I and attach it to that syllable, okay? Same thing goes down here. Okay, and then here, since we don't really have partners, like at least not right now, just take the words that are in the box and see if you can put them in the right column. So we have position. Now look at our endings here. ION, ITY, IC, ICAL. Okay. So what it wants you to do is put it based on the correct stress pattern. Which one has the position? Okay. Position. Well, I see conclusion. That's one that could go, right? Or maybe permission. That follows this stress pattern. Priority. Here, majority. Not too hard, so it just gives you practice saying the words and putting them into the right column so you can see where the stress falls. All right? So, back here, this is the important rule right here. Stress the syllable immediately before these suffixes that begin with the letter I. So here's all the letter I, and notice that we have the syllable right before it is capitalized, which means it's stressed, right? So here's our ending and there, and this is the syllable right before IFY. Clarify, politician. So any syllable right before the I, the suffix that begins with an I, that's going to be stressed. Very important rule. Remember, 90%. All right, let's go to our next page. And you'll have more practice here from exercise 1, so you might want to do that, okay? I'm going to have you give a rubber band, and I actually don't have one here, but I'm going to pretend I have one, okay? So what it's going to say is take that rubber band, and when you have a stress, pull it out, okay? So stretch a rubber band on the stress syllable. So we'll start position. That's how you would do it. All right. So now you're supposed to listen on track 24 to the groups with these suffixes, graphy and logy, right? So we have biography, geography, bibliography, ecology, technology, radiology. All right, so here's the rule. Stress the syllable immediately before these suffixes, just like the first rule. Find your suffix, logi and graphy, and then whatever syllable comes right before it, you stress it. So photography, notice that I reduced that. I said ph, I went to photography. I didn't say photography, I said photography. Okay. And then we stress the syllable before logi. So pharmacology, pharmacology, pharma, right? I reduced that to a schwa right before the stress. Pharmacology. So oftentimes we're going to reduce that vowel to a schwa before and after the stress syllable, often. Okay, so I'm going to stress the syllable right before the suffix before logi and graphy. And then in Rule 6-3, we're going to have, listen to the words with suffixes E, EER, ESE, ETTE, ESQUE, and IQUE, okay? So what's the stress pattern? Engineer, technique, Japanese, okay? He's a chemical engineer, a new technique, written in Japanese, okay? So notice that if it has the EER or the ESE or the IQUE, then we have stress on the very last syllable, okay? Well, actually, it's stress. It's usually always the last syllable, but we stress it on the suffix itself. EER, IQUE, ESE. It's stressed on the suffix itself. And usually the suffix is at the end, so there you go. So there are a few exceptions to Rule 6-1 and 6-3. You'll notice that politics, well, if we followed the rule, you see the IC, we're supposed to stress the syllable right before it, like lit. But we don't because it's an exception to the rule. Politics, rhetoric, Catholic, committee, coffee, television, right? These are things you just have to memorize, folks. Okay. There's a chart that you can fill out if you want to practice this, and you can add certain endings like how would we make this into a noun, and then how would we pronounce it? For example, if we added ITY to major, we would have majority, right? Majority. Or photograph, we would have photography. So you can work on that. It's just an extra exercise for you if you would like to get better. But now we're going to go down to Rule 6-4. And it says, listen to these verbs ending in ATE. About 1,000 of these verbs exist in English, and they are common in academic and business settings. Can you identify the pattern? Demonstrate, communicate, participate. Okay, it's easy to demonstrate, need to communicate, so communicate, participate, demonstrate, okay? So what's this rule? We're going to have a little bit of a different rule here. So stress falls 2 syllables before the ATE in North American English, okay? So in most of the other suffixes you've been learning that the stress falls right before the suffix. But in the ATE, being a verb, we're going to go back 2, okay? So we're going to do it this way. Generate. See, we didn't say generate, say generate. We didn't say estimate, we said estimate. And then negotiate. Notice that, see, here's ATE, go back to 1, 2. ATE, 1, 2. ATE, 1, 2. So sometimes it falls at the beginning and sometimes in the middle just because we don't know how many syllables there are in that particular word, but find the ATE and go back to. no matter how many syllables it has, okay? So this is, we say the second syllable before ate suffix is stress, even if ed or ing is adding. Even if ed or ing is adding. So here's ate, go back to, stress it. Collaborate. Now we're going to add ed, but notice that it doesn't matter. We're still going to go back to, from here, the ate, okay? So collaborated, and here we're going to add ing. We're still going to go back to from the ate. There's a spelling change here. 1, 2. Collaborating, and we do make a change on that fourth syllable. Let me change that. We do make a change when we add tion. That changes that verb to a noun. And when it changes it from a verb to a noun by adding tion, we shift that stress to right before the ion. And doesn't that make sense? Because we just learned that the I suffixes that we add to words, the syllable is right before it, right? So here when we added ion to the verb, it made it a noun. Now we're going to shift our stress. So we're going to say collaboration. So notice I didn't say collaboration, I said collaboration. So ate, 2 syllables back, ed, still 2 syllables back, ing, 2 syllables back, add ion, 1 syllable back. Okay? Don't you just love English and its crazy rules? Okay, so collaborate, collaboration, collaborating, collaboration. Okay, so we have to work on that. Okay. And the little girl saying, Norman won't collaborate. All right. And then you can go down here to exercise 3 and just say along with the video. And I really hope I assign it, but I don't force you to say it in a voice recording, because I imagine that you took this pronunciation class to improve your pronunciation. So a lot of the motivation is on you to go and do these exercises. I assign them, but I don't check them. But your improvement will be your guide of whether you should be practicing a lot more or not. Okay, so I just highly recommend you do it, because there is a test at the end of this week where I'm going to ask you, where does the stress fall on these words? And you don't have any audio. Okay, so when you go to the test this week, I'm going to say, in bolded letters and in capital, I'm going to say, is this stress in the right place? And so you need to learn the rules, and you need to practice the pronunciation with the CD so it becomes more natural to you. So when you take the test, you're there. Okay? So, and the good thing for you to do too is ask yourself, why am I pronouncing the stress on these syllables? What's that rule? Okay? Indicate. Why is it on in? Well, there's ate, and I'm going to go back to 1, 2. Okay? So indicating, indicated, indication. Let me slow down. Indicate, indicate, indicated, indicating, indication. Why? Because of the ion. Sometimes I have to slow myself down or I miss my stress. Okay? Again, concentrate, concentrated, concentrating, concentration. Why? Because the ion. Okay? And remember, if we add ing to an ate, we still go back 1, 2. Okay. And we want to go over our helpful hint here. And then we'll stop there for the lecture. It says some ate words are actually adjectives or nouns or adverbs, as well as verbs. So let's look at this. Miriam, or let's say Miriam, is applying to graduate school in psychology. Okay. The service at the restaurant is just adequate. In ATE adjectives, nouns, and adverbs, the primary stress is the same. But the ATE syllable is usually unstressed. it sounds like it, like in the word it, or hit, or bit, or fit. Okay? So in ATE, adjectives, nouns, and adverbs, notice I didn't say verbs. The primary stress is the same, but we don't have the ate sound, we have the it sound. Okay? So let's take a look at how that sounds. There's a completely separate issue. I still stress 2 back from the ATE. Here's ATE, 1, 2. I still stress that, but I changed the pronunciation of the ATE. So separate. But if I use it as a verb, separate. Separate. Okay? So if it's an adjective, that's a separate issue. Separate. But I want you to separate those children. Separate. So notice you hear the ate in the verb, but the it in the adjective or the noun or the adverb. Okay, in this case, it was an adjective. Okay, can you give us an estimate? That's a noun. Estimate. Now let me use it as a verb. Can you estimate the cost? How much do I need to pay? Can you estimate that for me? I used that as a verb, right? But if I'm going to use it as a noun, the actual thing, the write-up you gave me, the numbers, that's the estimate. When you wreck your car, right? You have to go in for an estimate. That's the noun. So I say it, estimate. But if I'm going to ask you to do the verb part of that, I want you to estimate that for me. Then you hear the ATE very clear, ate. Okay? So practice, practice, practice. You'll get it as we come along. And I'm going to do these 3 up here just really quickly for you again. Miriam's applying for graduate school in psychology. Graduate. The service at the restaurant is just adequate. It. I haven't seen Anne in 10 years, but I recognize her immediately. Immediately. Okay. Whew, a lot to do today. And so hopefully you really, really practice these. And you're going to have to get on it this week because usually I spend 2 weeks per chapter. And this week we've got 1 week for chapter 6. So set aside some time in your daily life to practice this. And you're going to start sounding like that, more like that native speaker as we go along. All right, everybody. Have a happy week, have a safe week, and a healthy week. Take care.